So what is Virtual Forms Framework? You know, we all love Microsoft Excel, but sometimes it can be a real pain in the ass when we are trying to use it as a database or a table for our data. Not to mention when we are trying to visually display and be able to update the data that we have in a relational structure. For example, we have orders and then order details, or we have orders and order payments. In these cases, the Virtual Forms Framework can be a rescue. It enables us to create and use simple and advanced forms directly from Microsoft Excel and VBA. We can store our data in, for example, MySQL database and use Microsoft Excel and VBA to code to interact with the data in the forms and also with the data in the database. And then we can simply use Microsoft Excel or Power BI in what are they the best in analyzing data, in creating reports. And our data can rest somewhere on the network, in a database, on a server, or somewhere on the internet, on a web server, for example. And what is the best? When we are using Virtual Forms Framework, there is a little to no coding to create our user forms or our so-called virtual forms to be able to accomplish actions like create, read, update, or delete records that are in our database. And all that with almost no coding. Or we can create also a lookup forms. Lookup forms in Virtual Forms are just a normal forms or normal virtual forms, but we have assigned to them an attribute that we want to use them as a lookup forms, and the Virtual Forms control take care about everything, about inserting a select, a exit button, and the best of all this is we can use our normal forms or our virtual forms and with practically one click of a button transform them into our lookup forms. So no need to create one form for a normal form and one form for a lookup form. And as you know, Virtual Forms Framework can use Microsoft Excel VBA for a code engine, and when the time comes that you want to convert your Microsoft Excel database applications into our standalone desktop applications, this can also be done with Virtual Forms Framework and, for example, Microsoft Visual Studio 2017 Community Edition that is absolutely free. There will be a few lines of code needed to make it work, but it's doable. And all work done in Virtual Forms Designer would work without changing. Only the code that we would write in VBA would need some little change, but not a lot. Because Microsoft Visual Studio 2017 is having Visual Basic.NET that is almost 90% the same as VBA. Or we can also use the C# or some other languages. It's up to you. And now let's talk about from which components are Virtual Forms Framework made of. Virtual Form Framework is made from two components. One is a Virtual Form Designer, and the second one is a Virtual Form Control. With Virtual Form Designer, we create a model. Like we did in previous lessons, we created a model for our database. In a similar way, we will create our models for our virtual forms and then store this data about our virtual forms in one file that is having an extension .vf, and our virtual form control will then use this data to help us to present, to visualize our virtual forms in an environment like Microsoft Excel or in a Visual Studio 2017. Let's not spend any more time on talking. Let's see how we can do this.